In this video, I will be showing how you can use LogoPress 3 to create a compound blank and pierce die. First, I will open up the part file. As you can see, it is simply a parasol file. There's no issues with it. When I run in Part Diagnostics, and I will save the part. The only thing in this part that I'm going to do is add the scrap around the part that will be blanked off, will be cut off when we blank the part. So I'm just going to start a sketch on the front plane. And first, I'll just convert the outside perimeter of the part. And then I am going to sketch in a rectangle to represent the pre-cut blanks that will be placed into the die. I'll dimension it. And then extrude it. And I am going to uncheck merge results because we do not want to merge this body in with the body of the part. Once it's extruded, I can then select it and use the SolidWorks Move Copy Body feature to move that part. I want to use Translate down an 1/8 inch. Save the part, and I will close it. We can now start creating the tool. So with SolidWorks open and no files open in SolidWorks, I go to the Tools, pull down, LogoPress 3 tool structure. First is asking where I want to save the tool assembly. I'll give it a name. Give it a project name. Select a tool template. I'll just select a very simple tool template. And there we have our basic die set. And next, I am going to insert the part that we had just created into this tool. So I'm going to exit out of tool structure and just use SolidWorks Insert Components to insert that part file. I'm just going to check OK and let the origin of the part go into the origin of the tool, both of which are at the center of the part and the center of the tool. You could reposition it if you'd like, but this works in this particular case. I am now going to insert a pressure pad, a die block on the top, and a punch retainer plate on the top. I will use tool structure to do that. Start it up again, and I'll select add a plate. The pressure pad is going to go into the lower assembly. I'll use plate from template. The template I'll use is just called plate. It's just a rectangular block. Give it a name, material, and heat treatment. For my Z position, I am going to select the bottom side of the scrap. The X and the Y positions I'll leave blank, and I'll click OK. It's going to give me a warning saying that it is going to create an external reference because I'm mating to something outside of the lower assembly. I'll just select yes because that's what we want to do. And there's our pressure pad. I just have to resize it under plate dimensions. I'll make the pressure pad 10 inches in the X. Next, I am going to add the die block, the blanking die block on the top, on the upper assembly. So I'll go add a plate. I want it to go into the upper assembly. I will show the rest of the tool using my LogoPress filters. Plate from template plate is the template we'll use. I am going to then select die block as a file name and select the material and heat treatment. Z position is going to be the top of the scrap. And again, I'll leave the X and Y positions blank because then the plate will come in centered on the tool, which is where we want it. I will use adapt dimensions, so I'm going to check that option and select the pressure pad. So that the plate will automatically resize itself, and then all I have to do is adjust the plate thickness. I got one more plate I'm going to bring in here at this time. So I'll select add a plate. Again, it's going to go into the upper assembly. This time it will be the punch retainer plate. Z position will be the top of the die block. X and Y will remain blank. Adapt dimensions again, and select OK. Again, I just have to adjust the thickness of that plate. And you can see there is a gap in between the punch shoe and that punch retainer plate. When I select the punch shoe, I can either adjust the plate Z position, just adjust the gap distance between the front plane and the bottom of the shoe. But what I'm going to do is put focus here and then designate what that shoe is mated to, which I am going to say the top of the punch retainer plate, and then adjust the gap distance to 0. Now you can see there's no gap anymore. I can now adjust the size of the die set. I have the punch shoe selected, and I'm just going to change the X dimension and the Y dimension, and also the lift hole distance, bring those further apart. At this point, I can exit tool structure, and I will add the blanking punch using the LogoPress 3 form punch command. For the formed area on the strip, I will select the bottom of the part. I'll give it a name, material, heat treatment. It should default to a 3D punch. If it's not, you have to change it. I'll put focus in the select the base face box, and my base face will be the top of the die shoe. I can now sketch in what I want that punch to look like. So I'll select the punch body sketch definition icon, puts me into a sketch, and I will just, you can see that the bottom of the part is still selected, that bottom face. So I'll just select convert entities, and I'll convert that outside perimeter of that face. But since this is the blank punch, I need to offset this in for the die clearance. The die on the upper half, the opening in the die, will be size. So I'll select here and select offset entities, reverse it so it goes to the inside. I do want to make the base construction automatically, and I'm going to say that there's going to be 10,000 die clearance. Click OK, and it is offset. Exit out of the sketch, and you'll get a preview of that punch, cut off to the bottom of that part. Next, we need to adjust the openings in some of the plates, and that's done with the punch passage section. You can see that it's already creating an opening in the pressure pad, but I will also create an opening in the die block. I just have to have focus in this box and select whatever plates I want openings in. For the pressure pad, I am going to adjust the clearance. And also in the die block, I'll adjust the clearance for that. And that I'm just going to make 10 thousandths bigger so that it'll be the size of the part. I have all my parameters set, so I just select OK. There's my blank punch along with the openings in the plates. Next, I need to create the stripper plate or knockout on the top half of the die, inside the die opening. So I will start tool structure, select add a plate. This time I want to go into the middle assembly. I am going to use plate from a sketch, adjust the thickness of that plate. I could adjust it later, but I might as well enter it now. Give it a name, material and heat treatment. The Z position will be the top of the part. The X and Y I'll leave blank and select OK. Again, it's going to create an external reference. And now it placed me into a sketch. I just need to sketch in the size, shape, and location of that stripper plate. I'm selecting through transparency, so I'll hold down my shift key so I can select. Right click, select tangency, convert that. And now I just need to offset it in how much clearance I want. So I'll select it, offset. Make the base construction. Make sure it's going in the correct direction. Right now it is going out instead of in, so I'll reverse it. And then exit the sketch. I can now exit tool structure, and we can see the stripper plate inside of the opening. We can now add some of the standard components. I'll start out adding the cylindrical punches for the two openings in the part. So I'll select standard component library, cylindrical punch, and select a shank punch with the ejector. We don't have a punch to mount, so I'll just put focus in the head plate box. Select my head plate, which will be the top of that punch retainer plate. So I'll go right click, select other, and just go down through the list till I find, there it is, the top of that plate. Next, I select my die plate, which will be the blank punch. And my stripper plate, well, that's going to be that plate that we just created. I can now come up to the top, select my supplier, body diameter, enter in my point diameter. If I need to adjust the length of the point on the punch, I can do that right here. Put focus in the stripper plate box. I need to add some clearance for the through hole. So right click, go to my standard drills list, adjust the depth. Next, I'll go to the die block, die plate. I'll enter my clearance. This is overall clearance, so 10,000 per side, 20 thousandths. Enter in how far the punch is penetrating into that die plate. I can adjust the land. And I need select clearance down here. That would be other plates cross through. Select my clearance plate. Once I have the parameters set, I select OK. Puts me into a sketch. Place my sketch points in the center of the openings in the part. Exit the sketch. Create the punches. I can now insert some of the other standard components. I'll start out inserting some die springs for a pressure pad on the bottom. I'll select my base face, link plate, select my supplier, size, and what duty. Enter in my deflection. Get my percentage of compression and force. I can adjust how deep I want the pocket in the plate. Click OK, it places me into a sketch. I'll use LogoPress 3 automatic pattern. Adjust the distances and click OK. If I want two more, I can always go back into automatic pattern. Change it to 2 points. Adjust the distance value. Select OK. And exit sketch. There's my springs. I'll add in some shoulder bolts. Adjust the size. Travel under the head. Again, I'll use LogoPress automatic pattern. We'll now add some screws and dowels to the blanking punch. Select my head plate, length plate, adjust the size of it. I'll make the counter bore 1/4 inch deeper for die life. And the tap tool, I'll just change the type so it's a through drill. Now the dowels. Next, I'll show the upper half of the tool and put in the springs for this stripper. Select the base face and the length plate. Again, select your supplier, size, enter the deflection. I need another opening in the punch retainer plate, so I put focus on the other plates cross through. Now I got a hole there. Next, I'll put in the shoulder bolt. The base face, I'm going to place the bolts in the middle of the spring. So the base face is going to be the bottom of the pocket for the spring. Select other. There we go. And the length plate. Place my points in the center of the springs. Next, I need screws and dowels in the upper die plate. And finally, I need to add some dowel pins on the bottom just to locate the part. I'll use machining axis for that. Select my reference face. Add my dowel pin. Just the length of it. And how far down I want it to go. I can also, with other plates crossed through, put the clearance holes in the die plate. Puts me into a sketch. And I'll just place my points. And dimension to the edge of the part. And finally, I add the leader pins for a die set. I'm going to place my points coincident with a sketch that's in the punch shoe. And then once they are inserted in the tool, I can simply select that punch shoe and change the configuration so that the pins are set to the default locations from the catalog. I'll just save the tool. And our compound blank and pierce die is complete.